get started, Dan?
So yeah, let's get going.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the fourth workshop hosted by the Center for Businesses in Transition. My name is Mike Bisa, and I'm the Assistant Director at the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce and Community Liaison for the Center for Business in Transition in St. Lawrence County and Akwesasne. Part of my role as a community liaison is to identify businesses that are thinking of retirement and ensuring that the transition strategy is in place to keep the business in the family, sell to another buyer, or even transition to an employee ownership model. If you're a business owner ready to plan a transition or know of others who are, please contact Danny or myself to get started. Today's workshop is titled Intergenerational Family Transitions, Creative Solutions, and Alternative Structures. And it will start with an introduction of what the Center for Business in Transition is by the program coordinator and great leader, Danny Delaney. Following Danny, we'll have a panel discussion moderated by Michelle Collins of the SUNY Canton SBDC. Our panelists who so graciously shared their time with us is Dina Giltz-McCullough, President and CEO of a fourth-generation family-owned business with a location right down the road here in Potsdam, Northern Insurance Agency, Inc. And Aaron Alguire, owner of Celtic Knot in Canton and past owner of Sposa Bella that was recently sold to another local business owner. After our panel discussion, we're very fortunate to be joined by Carol Whitmire, Visiting Associate Professor at St. John Fisher College, who is currently leading the development of a new family business initiative, including a next-generation leadership program. Carol will give a presentation on transition planning for family businesses. Debbie Pettit will wrap up the workshop with a presentation on creating a leadership development strategy. Debbie is an accredited human resource professional and business advisor with over 25 years of experience in human resource operations and has implemented business conversion programs for a variety of North Country enterprises. And with that, I will introduce Danny to give us an overview of the Center for Business in Transition.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry. I will try to be nice and quick because I'm not as exciting as all these other folks that we have here today. But I'm Danny. I work at the Adirondack North Country Association. We do regional economic development for the 14 northernmost counties in New York. We help to grow the new economy. So we do that in a variety of ways. So we support local jobs and businesses, foster vibrant main streets, and circulate wealth through our economy. We do this because our rural economy, our rural businesses traditionally have an extractive economy where a lot of our money and wealth is going outside of our region. And we help in grassroots ways to be able to keep that from happening and change the model of how our economy works here. We do that through a couple different programs. We do that through local food systems. We do a lot of farm to school, farm to institution programs and work with our farmers on value-added agriculture. We work with clean energy. So we work with municipalities to install or figure out the best solutions for solar and new clean energy advancements, and a number of other sort of business and job opportunities in clean energy. We also work with local businesses, so promoting thriving main streets in a number of different ways. We help artisans who are looking to go to wholesale, so somebody who's got a craft in their own home and they're trying to turn it into a larger business or something where they can really sell it to gift shops and things like that. So we've been doing a wholesale show for over 30 years, helping to help folks enter that market and quit their day job to pursue their dream. About 2 years ago now, we started working with the Center for Rural Entrepreneurship to develop a regional economic analysis, sort of looking at where we might be able to invest in our region, what the key areas that we should focus on are. And from that came this focus on industries including craft and manufacturing, local food and value-added agriculture, and sustainable tourism. But also from this report, we were really able to sort of back up with data some of the things that we were hearing in our interviews throughout the region. And what we were hearing is that there's a lot of retiring business owners who don't have a succession plan in place or need to put together a plan to be able to keep their businesses going. They don't want to see this thing that they've built over all of these years lie dormant, and their communities don't want to see their doors shut. But this plan as a ballpark, this analysis as a ballpark, investigated to say perhaps over 10 to 16,000 businesses in our region small businesses in our region are owned by baby boomers. So as a result of this, we were able to secure funding from the Northern Border Regional Commission to address this in a way that was a collaborative partnership with organizations throughout the region. So this is a national issue. A lot of folks refer to it as the silver tsunami, but we really were looking at seeing what we could do at a regional collaborative partnership level to address the situation. And so came the Center for Businesses in Transition, which just sort of launched this year in January 2019. So we call it a center, but we don't have like a physical office that you can come into my office anytime, my door's open, but we don't have like one center where all of the people are. We have community liaisons at different organizations throughout the region and lots of individuals and organizations interested in, the retention and future of the businesses in our communities. We provide matchmaking services with potential buyers, access to planning tools, and connection with existing services. We're not accountants or lawyers, or we're not the SBDC. The SBDC does a great job, and we send most people to the SBDC during their process. But we don't provide the technical services ourselves. We really focus on getting folks to start thinking, it really takes at least 3 to 5 years to develop a good succession plan, to get ready for that transition. And so we're doing a lot of the boots on the ground sort of first step education about making that transition and thinking about that transition earlier. So these are all the folks listed on the slide here that have a liaison in their office who are in formal partnership, but over 50 other organizations as well are in sort of a softer partnership with us to work towards these goals. And today we're so thankful to have St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce and Mike Bissott as our hosts for today's program. So we work to, as Mike mentioned, help folks with transitions, whether they're looking to sell on the open market, whether they're looking for intergenerational family transitions, which is mostly the focus of today's program, or if they're looking to conversions to employer worker ownership. This is sort of the conversions to employee and worker ownership is a burgeoning sort of topic throughout the U.S., but in our region, there are already a few businesses looking to see if they can transition their business to their employees as a cooperative, and we're building a bench of resources so folks can access capital for those kind of transitions as well, and get the sort of more technical resources they might need for those kind of transitions. So we help folks sort of explore their options, building a transition team, looking at different finance models, and a number of other things, but I won't get too much into those. But we are always looking for business owners looking to retire or transfer, or aspiring entrepreneurs who are also looking to purchase an existing business or start out on a new career path. So far in 2019, we've hosted or sponsored a number of programs. For this particular workshop series, the ones that have already happened are already available online. So Business Transitions Overview, Preparing to Sell Your Business, Transitioning to Employee Ownership, and then today we're doing Intergenerational Family Transitions. In August, we will be doing Aspiring Entrepreneurs Taking Over an Existing Business, and that program will be held in Loudville. We've sponsored farm transition programming. All of those are over as well and available on our YouTube channel through the Cornell Cooperative Extension. We have a few different programs that are specifically really detailed about business valuation, which is a lot of people's first question when they come and talk to us is, how much is my business worth? If I'm going to talk to somebody about taking it over, what's the price tag? What does that look like? And one of the things that we'll talk to you about at the end of this is maybe looking into doing a family transition programming and peer-to-peer groups in development with Carol, one of our speakers today for next year. So we're sort of gauging interest for that program. We develop case studies, and then one of the other things that we do that, like I said, we're not real estate agents, right? And there's a lot of folks who might not be ready to say, my place, my restaurant, Joe's Ice Cream Shack on Fifth Lake is ready for sale. It's public, ready, everybody know about it. Not everybody's ready for that, right? For a lot of different reasons. They don't want to lose their customers, they don't want to scare their employees, whatever that might be. So one of the things that we can do, and we do as we're talking to aspiring entrepreneurs, is we can say, you know what, there's a restaurant somewhere in the North Country, has about 5 employees, this might be a good fit. If you're interested, I can make the connection, but we don't have to say it really publicly before people are ready. So we can talk a little bit semi-anonymously about businesses that are for sale. And then if those things are publicly for sale, we do lots of presentations to talk about available opportunities, and we're also putting together an online directory. And And so with that, I will turn it back over to Mike to introduce our moderator and our panelists for today.
Thank you, Dan. So our panel discussion today will feature Dina Giltz-McCullough and Aaron Alguire, will be moderated by Michelle Collins of the SUNY Canton Small Business Development Center. Michelle Collins is a business advisor with advanced certification at the SUNY Canton Small Business Development Center, having joined the center 20 years ago as one of its first business advisors. In this role, Michelle assists aspiring and existing entrepreneurs through many of the challenges of entrepreneurship with one-on-one services. She also conducts training and seminars on a variety of small business topics and previously taught small business management at SUNY Canton for 5 years. In 2003, she received the New York State SBDC State Star Award and was also honored with the agency's Lead by Example Award in 2007. So Michelle?
Well, I'll start by introducing our panelists, and then we'll kind of jump into a few questions and give you a chance to kind of talk about your experiences. Dina is a third-generation president and CEO of Northern Insuring Agency with a staff of 32. Northern is headquartered in Plattsburgh and has branch offices in Potsdam and Glens Falls. As the leader of Northern Insuring, Dina is a visionary, experienced, and strategic. She appreciates excellence, perseveres, works collectively, and has an intuitive understanding of team cohesion dynamics and interpersonal relations. In 1984, cum laude graduate of St. Lawrence University, Dina has maintained her certified insurance counselor designation for over 20 years, and in 2010, she completed the certified risk manager designation. As an active SLU alumna, she is on the Laurentian Properties Committee and is a mentor to students as part of the Laurentians Investing in Networking and Careers program. Personal passions include family, swimming, gardening, reading, paddleboarding, yoga, skiing, snowshoeing, photography, traveling, being curious, taking risks, and learning new skills. So I'm not really sure how you fit all of that into one day or one lifetime, but I think that's really awesome. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Aaron is here as the former owner of Sposabella in Canton and current owner of the Celtic Knot, also in Canton. Aaron was born in October 1980 and lived in Canton her whole life, which she kind of says is not very exciting, but I think we often underestimate our upbringing in rural northern New York for sure. She graduated Canton High School in 1998 and Champlain College in December 2002 with a bachelor's degree in business management. She quickly moved back to Canton and managed the front end of the PNC grocery store in Canton and managed Stewart's in Potsdam. She also worked as an accountant at Farm Credit and was a senior clerk at Kinney Drugs in Gouverneur. She had decided that she didn't really like corporate America as part of her career path, so in March of 2011, she went to work for her mother at Sposabella, a bridal shop in downtown Canton. She took over the shop completely in 2013 and opened the Celtic Knot in November of 2014. She sold Sposabella in May of 2019, and the Celtic Knot is still open and is doing quite well. And Erin also has her MBA through Champlain College in 2012. So again, a lot of accomplishment, a lot of experience, and different viewpoints, I think, that you can definitely bring to the table. So I think we're going to start off, if just each of you could talk about your experience with business transition, just briefly, maybe your personal story, a brief version of that. Okay. Whoever wants to start.
Oh, thanks. The transition into it. So I had been working for Kinney Drugs, I think at the time, for 4 years. I had moved up quite quickly, but knew I really wasn't enjoying it. I didn't feel I was ever going to surpass where I was. They had suggested I start getting my master's, which I went ahead and did start achieving that, and still it wasn't looking like there was going to be much movement just due to the nature of their corporation. Probably could have looked outside, but knew my mother had this beautiful little business that was so exciting and interesting to me, and not a business I probably would have opened had it been my choice, but definitely something that was intriguing. And I've always had this bug in the back of my head, knowing I was going to be my own boss. I really don't. It's not that I don't take direction. I don't like taking direction. I'm very much one to blaze my own trail and make all the mistakes on the way and learn from them and hopefully better myself as I move. So I kind of burst through the doors to my poor mother, who had said, just give me a little bit. And I said, no, I'm here now. Hi. I think within a year, she had decided she didn't want to be in the building anymore as days progressed. And I think that was probably a good choice for us. My mother and I we're very much the same. But due to that, it became a lot of oil and water. So she gracefully stepped back and kept doing alterations, which is a major part of a bridal shop. So it was a quick transition, but a slow one all at the same time, because I kept, her door was always open to me, which was the most amazing thing, because I would get us in a pickle. Notoriously, I would get us in a pickle and be able to turn to her and say, Mom, help, which was great, because you have that relationship with them. I just think it makes it easier. You're not, it's unconditional. So you're not afraid to walk in the door and go, oh, I just blew it. They're still going to love you just the same. Whereas if in the real world, you do that, you might be out on your ear. So that was my transition in. I don't know, do you want me to speak of the transition out? Or
Yeah,
would you like me to
yeah.
hold on? So November of 2018, so just this past year, my mother passed away unexpectedly. And so my transition out was, I think, just as quick and wrenching as my transition in, unfortunately. The bridal industry is a very trying industry to work in, I guess is the best way to put it. I enjoyed my brides very much, don't get me wrong. I loved our customers, but definitely much more stress than I needed in my life. And it only got worse as years progressed, with all these shows and all this fanfare. And many of my brides would come in and start off, all this, and by the end of it, they'd look at me and say, I just can't wait for this to be over. And I'd say, unfortunately, that's the way it's turned. It's turned into an industry, not a love of vegan love anymore. And I didn't like that. And I didn't like the attitudes that had changed so much. It was not an enjoyable time for a lot of women anymore, making it not such an enjoyable time for myself or my staff, who I felt were getting quite abused at the time. So it was, I think, a good decision for me to say, okay, maybe this is the wake-up call, to say, I think we're done with this. I think it's a chapter that we need to close in our lives. I think I very much had my mother's support, with me or not. So we I spoke with the rest of my family and my accountant and, other people involved, and said, I think it's time I go. And so I luckily was able to find a wonderful small business owner in Canton, a young woman who owns Luna, which is a beautiful fashion boutique in the town. And she is an amazing, smart, just great small business owner. And she chose to purchase from me. Whether it will continue on as a bridal shop, I am unaware. I sold everything. At being the way I went out, I couldn't bring myself to go through all of the content. It was not something I wanted to live through, selling off piece by piece by piece. So I said it's all or nothing. I was my own realtor. I just kind of put it out there. Haley talked to me, again, as the owner of, Haley Hodge, the owner of Luna, and we very, very amicably got through everything. Not an argument, not a disagreement, not a, well, I think, it was, yeah, okay. Both of us, both ways. It was the most enjoyable situation I think I've ever been in, so I got very lucky there. And again, like I said, I think my mother was definitely holding my hand through all of that. So I had a lovely experience with both, in and out. So I guess it's probably not always like that, but I got lucky.
And you can give us your...
That's a compelling story. I'm sorry to hear about your mom.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Interestingly, stories. I thought what she had to say was really perfect and very succinct. I never dreamed growing up that I would be in the insurance business. It's been in my family since 1933. So the business was formed in 1930. My grandfather got involved in 1933 and became president in 1941. My dad joined in 1959. he became president in 1985 at my grandfather's death. And my grandfather worked up until 6 months of his death. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And about that time, I was engaged to get married to a guy in the military when Plattsburgh Air Force Base was Plattsburgh. I'd met my husband-to-be, who he had then gotten reassigned to Texas, and we were engaged to get married, and my grandfather's diagnosed, and my father calls me up and says, how would you like to join the family insurance business? I really need somebody I can trust. Being young and impressionable as I was, I didn't realize I was making a decision that was going to be for the next lifetime. I don't know, at 23 years old, you're sitting and thinking, wow, this is really what I want to do for the rest of my life. But my husband gave up his career in the military. We moved back to Plattsburgh, and I think I've always been a pleaser. Oh, you need this, sure, I'll do this. Oh, you'll do, and I want to say, like, women, I'm 57 years old, women of a certain age, I think generationally, we were, parents stayed home a lot. We were of the generation, you're going to go to work, you're going to raise a family, you're going to do community activities, you're going to do everything, like pretty much on your own. And while I had a perfectly capable, lovely husband, his participation in the parenting and everything else was, I would say, fairly small. So I started my career, my grandfather passed away, and I just jumped right in, 2 feet, had a lot of energy, 3 children within about 5 years, bought a house, was involved in several organizations, chaired the United Way board, chaired the Child Care Coordinating Council board, got involved in all these other organizations and filled and overfilled my cup to the point of, wow, like you say, how do you do that? I really like doing a lot of community activities, and I love being involved, and I looked where the needs were filled. I became sales, I went on manager while I was home breastfeeding a baby. My 3rd child, my father and one of our associates showed up and said, you can't do both jobs, would you? Sure, of course. Nursing baby, let me come back and do this job too. So that was kind of, when you say, was this ever what I dreamed of? No, I kind of fell into it. I think the family needed, and I'm a person that if I see something needs to be done, I just do it. And that was the expectation until, I think similar to Aaron, our son suddenly passed away in 2005. And when he passed away, I was on this fast track trajectory and everything came to a screeching halt because it was a very unexpected death. But I was already in the queue to become president of the organization, and that just continued after 2005 when I became president in 2008, regardless of all this other things that were just really going on in our life. And then in 2009, I kind of looked at the bench and said, we have kind of a thin bench. I'm a little thin here, and met a fabulous consultant through the Galliard Group at a family business workshop in Lake Placid that my husband just happened to see a little blip. And I think through then, it's kind of progressed from there to really grow the bench and such. But we now have my dad still involved, a very capable and energetic 81-year-old who does our budgeting, planning, and lives life half of the year in Florida, but still has clients and would like to see this go on, forever and ever. I have a brother involved, my younger brother, but he has a role within the organization of chief of marketing and has accounts that he handles too, but marketing is not PR, it's the liaison with our companies. And he does not have aspirations to be president and CEO. He's a little younger than I am, but that's not his aspirational goal. And I have a son, 28, who has joined us within the last 2 years. And I think he's interested, but it's a very complicated business to learn and a long learning curve. So we're solidly, my grandfather gifted the business to my father gifted the business to my brother and I, and now I am sitting here with the majority ownership saying what happens for the next generation.
And so maybe a question just kind of tying into a couple of things you said, because you said you were on track to become CEO. Was there a point in time that you kind of made the decision, or when, because you kind of stumbled into it, at what point did you kind of decide, okay, yeah, this is where I want to be and this is the track I want to be on?
I wish I could tell you it was intentional. I not so much. I mean, it really, I think it's great to just be authentic and honest about where I'm coming from. It was my birthright. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm an extremely capable person. I can do pretty much anything. You give me a job, I'll do it. And if that's what's expected of me, I will do that. Right. And I think my father wanted that very badly, and I adore my father, and he's been a terrific mentor to me. And I'm very fortunate to have had a strong male positive role model in my life that was a cheerleader for me in a largely male business. So maybe somewhat, different from Aaron. I early on in my career, but I could tell you I had a lot to prove. I was a single female salesperson in a whole male dominated team, and the way I was treated was very different from men. And even now, I am the only female that sit on many different insurance-related organizational boards at a senior level, and as a senior level CEO president. I think for women, it's really kind of a buzz when you think as a woman to get that high. That is what kind of thrills me. Growing people is what thrills me. The insurance is really, I make it more about how you're retaining employees or how this is making businesses feel more secure. So I think, it's a long answer, but no, it was like I'm just expected to do this and I'm doing it. What has been more intentional, and I think when we have a life change, and that has been a point where I've said, what is it I want for my future and for my transition, what's best for employees, and yet what is interesting, my son then comes back, which I never thought would happen. So, I guess it's like, and he needs to work for a startup and said, this is terrible. They have no benefits, no culture, no values, no, startups are sexy and lovely, but they really don't have foundational a lot of times. And so this is a great little 90-year-old business almost. They got their act together. I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. So, insurance can be like awesome when you start to put it in context of kind of where you're coming from. Yeah.
Erin, can you talk to us a little bit about your transition as kind of being different from transitioning to a family member? When you're, maybe talk about the mechanics a little bit of when you're transitioning the business to someone who's not a family member. So it's not like I'm gifting you this. Like what are the mechanics, or how does that process work? Or how did it work for you, I guess, because I know it can work in a lot of different ways.
Right. My mother had started out, the technical end, I guess. My mother had started out as a, sole proprietorship. So she was, it all ran off her social security number. It was just her. And then when I got there, it was hard because my name physically couldn't go on anything until I was something to do with the business. So we ended up switching over to an LLC, which time-consuming, confusing a bit, because I'm art brain. I'm all art brain. This technical stuff isn't I'm in awe of insurance because it is so technical. And then my insurance office is actually right next to me, so I'm in their door all the time. I'm like, Karen, because I don't know. So again, went to my accountant and said, Margie, fix this, make this work for us. And she helped us put us in the right direction of our lawyer and this, that, and the other. Once I got my name on things, it was much easier to move through the transition, to get my name on accounts, to find, to grow the business as I thought was necessary. Again, not always the right direction, but good try.
And did you become a partnership at that point?
Yep. So my mother, I think we started as 80-20, something like that. And by the end, she was still holding on. She was 51 and I was 49. So, yeah. So, again, it's a lot of technical stuff that I think it's good though to if you're going to transition, to definitely make sure all parties feel involved. I very much felt like her worker, not as her, not that I'm her equal ever. I mean, she surpassed anything that I could have ever done with that business, but definitely it is being a partner with her as opposed to just being her employee.
And when you transitioned out of the business to a new owner, you did talk about talking with your accountant beforehand. Yay!
Yes.
So what kinds of things did the accountant do with you? Did they talk to you about how the process worked and how to value your business, or what value did you find in the accountant helping you with that?
This is where I'm almost embarrassed because it didn't go down like that. It should have. Yes, I talked to my accountant. She was actually the one that said, you pick one. You get out of this business or you get out of that business because you are losing your quality of life. Mm-hmm. Because I, much like you, have to have my fingers in everything. Mm-hmm. I want to be volunteering. I want to be going and doing this. I want to be with my family. I want to see, I've had picked up doing alterations. So on top of day to day, that became night after night after night after night, and deadlines and stress. And so my accountant looked at me and said, this isn't healthy. We need to figure this out. And like I said, then my mother had passed, and it was like, oh, okay, there's my answer. That's the road I need to take. However, we had discussed all of the functionality of which business was probably the most sensible to get out of. The cost of replacing, let's just simply put it as the cost of replacing a wedding dress sample when a season changed, which you were locked into buying so many from each vendor each season, which is twice a year, just on average, a wholesale cost was $700 to $600. I can replace a bag of yarn for $30. So it's like, yeah, no, I can't do this anymore. So that was a lot of it, and then I honestly got very lucky. Nola's is a new business in Canton. It's a great little eatery right down the street and gift shop, right 2 doors down from the Celtic Knot. And Beth, I'm drawing a blank on her last name, but she's the owner. She also does estate sales, excuse me. So I kind of ran to her as a neighbor, just another small business that I knew I could talk to and would understand. I said, help, how do I get rid of this thing? What do I do from here? She said, honestly, Erin, she said, for right now, throw it on Facebook, see what happens. And I thought, oh, Lord, I'm not a Facebook fan. It just freaks me out all around. But I did it. And within 2 days, I think I had 4 inquiries. And I know people were at SBDC's door trying to help, get financing and everything. So, it really wasn't that technical for me. But again, I think in small business, you have to be ready for things not to be that technical.
Yep.
Or to be that technical. It can go either way.
Ready for your chair to break.
It's right, exactly. You're always waiting for that chair to break.
Yeah. And I think I do see that more often as people listing businesses for sale on social media. That's kind of a new twist to this process that hasn't been there before. So it's kind of an interesting way to get connection with the right buyer, which you obviously did. Yeah.
Shocked. I mean, I think, like I said, within 3 days, I think I was over 1,000 shared.
Oh.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Amazing how that works.
So I have a question for Dina. You've kind of been on this track for a little while, and as you said, there's a long learning curve, and it takes a process of years. Are there some questions you wished you had asked early in the process? Was there anything that kind of caught you off guard as you came into your leadership role?
I did see that question in advance. I don't think so. I think that I knew what I need. It's a very well-run business, and it couldn't be more different. I'm kind of envious of like you put it on Facebook and something happens. We've always had agreements between each other. We have a buy-sell between the owners. We have employment agreements within our organization. We had long-standing relationships with our accountants, attorneys, most consultants. I brought some on board, but I said earlier, if I could have known then what I knew now, was I asking something for my whole life, but I don't know that I would have asked that.
Right.
So I kind of live with the fact that I'm kind of a no regret kind of person. This is just where we're at. I asked what I asked. I am where I am now, and this is just what's going on. I mean, right?
So true.
So I think where you might be going with this is for other people that are possibly listening to this,
right,
what kinds of things might they ask? And for us, I've been really lucky to have my father really took the lead on the stock transfer. We were a C Corp. When you have a legal entity like that, I admire that you were a sole prop going to an LLC. That just somehow, I've got 35 employees. I've got people that have built a career in this business, and their families and their livelihood. And I've seen other insurance businesses that have gone terribly when they've sold. They've sold to big operations that have decimated them. They've ruined their relationships with customers and within the community. And I feel an incredible obligation. And I suppose if I had to ask anything, I'd just say, is this going to be a lifetime? Is this what I'm doing now for the rest of my life? I don't know that my father would have answered that.
Or you may not have known to ask.
I don't think I would have known.
You don't know what you don't know usually.
Nope. I had no idea how complicated really this business is to learn and to thrive in. And again, we're glad to have people like Erin who say, I really trust my insurance people, because along with the accountant and the attorneys, we tend to be the big three that are putting things together to say, who do I go to? And obviously you've got your other professional consultants that you can, the SBE in there. Yeah.
And a question for Erin. So you're still running the Celtic Knot. Is there something you can bring from your experience in transitioning out of Sposabella when it's time to transition out of the Celtic Knot that you might do differently, or experiences that you would apply, or?
Oh, every day it gets applied. I got like I said, when I started SPOSA right when I got my master's, and I was full of, excuse my French, piss and vinegar. I mean, I knew everything. I had the world by the tail. So I fell on my face quite often. So I learned to slow down. Definitely learned to slow down. Take it a little more step by step. Analyze a lot more. Think about things sensibly. Like, yes, my mother always said there's a huge difference between need and want. Mm-hmm. And I'm still to this day trying to figure that out. But it's getting easier. It's getting easier. I would hope that my daughter would be interested. I'm lucky enough to have a beautiful little girl that I'm very proud of. The goal was that she would end up with SPOSA. And when I was selling, she was in the back of the car, and she said, "Mama, I don't want to sell that one. I want to sell the other one because I want SPOSA." Mm. And I said, "I understand that, sweetheart." I said, "I do, but I don't think this is a good idea to keep it." You know, it's my 6-year-old I'm talking like this with, but she's so smart. I said, "We need to get out of this one." And she said, "But you're keeping the name, right? We're not selling the name, are we?" Because we had spoken, you know, she hears everything. I'd spoken to other people about selling the name, and I said, "No, the name is not going. That's ours. We're holding on to that." And she said, "So if I choose to open a business and be like you someday, may I have the name?" And I said, "Of course you can. Of course you can." So
6 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm setting her up for failure. No.
Or success.
Success. Just success. So I just pray that, I kind of hope she will. As much as I say I'm setting her for failure, I love being a small business owner. There is nothing I would want out of my life more than what I have right now. Do I make a lot of money? No. Do I have a lot of stress? Some days. Some days not. Don't try and do two. But I would hope that I'm able to pass this on to her, that I'm able to say, this is for you. I've helped to build this business, and if you like it, great. Hopefully it'll be at a point where she's at when I'm able to give it to her that if it's not the place she wants to be, she could afford to find a manager and still, have her fingers in it however she wants to, but let it be hers just as well. And if not, then we work on transitioning out just like we had to do before. So, you can't stay forever. And I think knowing when to get out, that was a huge, huge thing because I wanted to hang on to SPOSA so bad. But I had to swallow that pill. And I think that's another thing that small business owners need to understand is there is a time that you need to just say, I think it's time I walk away from this. It's just too big. It's just too much for me. So.
And I think, do we have time for some audience questions? Okay. Yeah. Any questions?
So for either of you.
I wasn't sure if questions were coming in from other locations
No, we haven't.
too, or?
No, not
Okay.
yet, but sometimes it just takes a minute.
Was there anything in particular in either of your transition processes that you wish there were more resources or support around that you felt like you couldn't, that you weren't really sure where to access, or just that you wish you had more help with?
Well, I found that help with, again, I think having a really good consultant by my side. I realized that I needed, in addition to the accountants, the attorneys, the legal transitional process and these kinds of things, having someone that you can talk with, other business owners, as you say, maybe, with Erin, it's a little bit different, but just other people that are going through that. You learn something from everybody else that has been through that. I really think that people ought to align themselves with an executive coach if you're in a business that you're running something, because I know that we're two women at the front of the room today, but whether you're a woman or man or whoever it is, having somebody that you can talk to without judgment and for confidentiality that can help you sort through that. It sounds like you found that person maybe with the 2 doors down conversation. Yeah.
I could have definitely benefited. I know I was on Dale Rice's doorstep many times. Like, what do I do? I'm stuck in a situation. I think somebody professional, though, again, with more of an overall consulting background for just me, would have been much more beneficial. I wouldn't have made a lot of the mistakes I made, I feel, if I'd had a little more coaching. So yes, I definitely agree.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? What peer groups are you part of?
It's interesting. I'm part of there's a women leadership group that was formed by that original consultant. It's called Cirque du Sophia, and it happens across the country. So the people that I'm aligned much more with from a women's leadership CEO president level are not people in my own community. I find that, well, there aren't many of them. And then the other really issue is if you really want to be real about what's going on, either with you or your family or whatever, it's really nice to have other family businesses that are dealing with the dynamic of, how do you keep your family intact? These are the people you're going to have Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, 4th of July, Sunday dinner, move the boat out, move the boat in, share vegetables. It's just like, and how do you do that and then have a business? And that, is really nice. So my peer group is much more broadly, but I will tell I've got a loose group of women leaders in Plattsburgh called Power Lunch, and we have lunch together about once every 6 weeks. It's not a group, it's not a whatever, but we've just kind of reached out to other women that are in leadership roles in their businesses. I firmly believe women lead differently, and I realize we've got men and women listening, but I need different supports. My dad used to come in and say, well, just stop doing that. I'm like, well, that's lovely, but I just can't stop doing that thing that you stop doing because you detach so well, you delegate well or something. And I said, it just doesn't work for me. I think, I have a group of people. Trust is really important to me, and I have that conversation then with the women that I associate with, and we have it with each other because we have to know that we can talk to other people without them walking around and telling your story to other people. It's my story if I want to tell it. So that's just a couple of examples, but one was formed more from somebody else, and one we've kind of worked to form.
I can't say that I have any. I have my employees, honestly. I'm very small. Celtic Knot is very small. It's 2 other women that I work with, and they have become my peers, my peer group. I tell them every day, this is just as much yours as it is mine. Please, suggestions, help, comments, concerns, anything. Let's go. Every meeting, every time I sit down to do anything, it's with all 3 of us. Because much like you, my employees mean the business. Your employees are your business, and you treat them well, and they will treat you well. And that's how I run my show.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, and maybe, I'm sorry, I got a call in the middle of that was really ridiculous, but so how do you, in dealing with the business part, with the families, there's also dealing with the feelings part, because if you're transitioning, you have to be at Christmas with these people, and I come from, my great-grandfather started a hardware store, and it went through, and actually we just sold it. My dad died, and we sold it. And anyway, no, so I kind of know what some of these feelings are, but how do you, I guess, there's the business part of figuring out, and then there's the feelings part of the business. Did you guys was there not therapy, but maybe therapy,
Lots
or
of therapy.
Yeah,
Lots of therapy.
how do you, I guess, how do you manage the emotional part of it? Because I'm sure that your dad ran the business differently than you do. You know what I mean? And I don't know if he had lots of thoughts and feelings about that he shared, and you were annoyed by. You know what I mean? How do you manage the feelings parts of the business
We were
transition?
always really complimentary in how we worked together. He's been just a huge supporter, and what's been nice within our own family is we've each had our own niche, and we've been very respectful to each other. And at times, we had an attorney once who came in, and I think his idea, we were redoing our buy-sell shareholder agreement, and he was trying to think through every contingency about how the family was going to screw each other out of some other part. And I kept trying to say to him, this is about keeping the family intact and making the family work together. And it got to the point where I looked at him and I had no words. I just turned and looked out the window, because when you align yourself with people that don't get that relationship, and that I've seen families just dissolve. We insure a lot of businesses that are family businesses that don't do effective transfers, that don't get along, and not everybody in a family should work together. I completely appreciate that. There's one that I know, they were not best together, and now they have 2 separate businesses, and it really works well for them. So I'm not saying it should always be the thing, but if you are working together, how do you create a respectful environment that you can manage, as you're saying here, the feelings and the emotion and the everything? But I can tell you it's a work in progress, because there are times when I know that I have not done what my father has wanted me to do the way that he's wanted me to do it, and I've just had to stand my ground and say that doesn't work for me. And that is one of the hardest things that I was telling a story yesterday to my staff because we were talking about bereavement leave, and this came up. And when our son had died, I could not go to work. I have 2 younger children, and they were 12 and 14 at the time. And I said, I cannot go to work. I'm just a wreck. I'm running an organization basically because that's kind of, I was running it even though I was not in that role. And it's not going to be healthy for me or anyone for me to be there. And he came out and he said to me, what am I going to tell people? And I looked at him and I said, I don't give a excellent what you tell them. I cannot be there. Would you like to fire me? And he looked at me like, no. I don't think that's the answer. But I'm like, this is my hard line. I am not in a good place right now. And I built my reputation on being able to be in a good place. And I do think that as leaders, we have to be able to know what our boundaries are, and we have to protect ourselves to some degree because there are, I would say, the farther up the ladder you go, the more your ass shows. And it's true. The community expectations are incredible. I've had very, very high expectations. I've had people after that people that were looking to see if we would fail. And I think we're taking kind of great pleasure in the drama behind that. And other people that were cheering for us saying, you know, you got this. And I've since kind of said, you know, and even our son died. It was a very tragic suicide that was not an expectation, never knew that this was even going to happen. So the stigma of that was another factor that my father wasn't very embarrassed by. And I said, well, I don't really care about that either. You know, I'm going to tell people what happened. So I've done a lot of public speaking about the effects, and a lot of families have had this in their family. And I just think, like, so we've had the complication of a family suicide, a very public death, that is for a family of a stature can be very, very shameful, and it was very shameful for my family, especially when you're in your 80s and you say this is, you know, it was just a different generation. And I've said I'm going to change the messaging on that. Watch me. I'm just going to talk about it, and whatever you want to tell people, you tell them, and I'm just going to tell them the truth. So we'll do that, and good for you. However you want to do you do you, and I'll do me. And I think that's how we change the world a little bit with those things. You have to be really kind of strong in the power of your convictions. What I haven't done well is I had somebody say to me, you may have to be prepared to disappoint your father. I said, well, I'm not prepared to do that. I will not do that. I will find a way to work this out so that everybody comes out in a good place. So, you know, it really is tricky. Lots of therapy, lots of consulting, a lot of people, you know. In the end, I can give advice to people much better than I do it for myself. And isn't that true of most people? I know the answer of what I need to do. It's very hard. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Mom and I were much different. Again, I think working, not for nothing, but you're absolutely right. Women and men manage much differently. I was always, when I was in companies, preferred to work with the gentleman just because it was very hard line. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to go down. Like it or lump it. When you're working with females, it's a lot more touchy-feely. And that's just the way it is. It's just the nature of who we are. We are touchy-feeling beings, you know. And my mother was a very sensitive, Italian, strong-willed woman. So I'm not going to lie, there were many family dinners where, you know, she sat at the table and I sat at the table, and there weren't too many words spoken between us, but we knew we had to be there on Sunday, you know, as a family. So it's the transition specifically was a lot of that, because she did not feel I was taking the business in a good direction. She did not feel that the growth I was making, the steps I was making were worth it. Some of them turned out to be phenomenal and really drove us up. Some of them not so much, you know, but I had to learn to put my tail between my legs and say, okay, you were right on that one. I really messed that one up. And so you had to learn a little pride, swallow it. And I was also quite happy in the fact that some days I could turn and say, hey, look, I did it. You know, get off my back kind of thing. So it's a hard balance. It's definitely a hard balance to learn, but I think you get there. You know, my business just isn't as structured, so there wasn't, you do this, I do this kind of thing. We kind of had this smushed together.
Right.
But
I can see that.
yeah, it made it a little more difficult, but we got there eventually.
Any more questions?
I guess I have one, and I hope I can word it how I'm thinking it.
So you were saying that it came to a point where you just knew you were done. You just knew it was time to transition. And so you were able to do that and sell out. With Northern, I know you don't want to sell and you want to transition. So I suppose, like, how do you handle if you get to that point where you're like, I just need to, but you know, Colin's not ready, or you know, how do you make it to that point? Because you're not going to want to walk away without knowing that there is a solid transition plan.
I think you have to have a lot of options, and it takes a long time. We were talking about the 3 to 5 years. You heard me talk to all the employees in January to say, look, this is my strategy. I want to, within the next 3 years, I plan to name what that next successor is going to be, because I'm not going to be my father at 81 doing this. I just do not have any interest in doing that, or my grandfather at 76 and then dying 6 months later. I think that works for them. That's lovely. I just don't see that happening for me. And so I think I'm running several parallel tracks at the same time. If Colin's not ready, I'm not going to put him in a position to fail, because I love him too much, and that's not going to be good for everyone else. Is there someone else within the organization that has the tools or skills that we might make a team of people? Do we look at a different structure of how that might work? Is merger or selling an option? I mean, I think it's all about keeping choices, but I have a life that I thought of outside of the business, as you heard say. I have a lot of things I really, really like to do, and I'm also a certified coach, so I'm having, through the International Coaching Federation, a certification, and those are the kinds of things I really like to do too, and I do that in my work. But it is a lot of stress in running a business, and I think, Tanya, to be, you're there, so you live it every day. I think that we create a great place to work. It has a lot of perks and benefits. I care very deeply about people. I'm trying to set myself up so that I don't need to sell the business to make my retirement income. That is not my plan. And so it gives me more options. Now, I think when you're very dependent upon your business and the sale of your business for your next big thing, I just think that creates a whole different dynamic, and thinking through and planning is really important. What is it people want, and then being clear with them, with the staff, because I think people came back to me after that and were like, "Wait, what did you just say?" I'm like, I'm trying to be really clear with people what my intent are. I've seen owners of businesses, organizations, even where I'm on a board right now, and there's the CEO, and he has plans, but he's not sharing any of those. And people know, like, what is this, a secret? You're whatever age, or you can see it through people's energy or their signs. I would much rather be clear with people and engage people in the conversation. And I've given you an opportunity for a leadership role, and that's up to you whether you take it or not. If you take a leadership role, you become part of that transition plan, and you're much younger than I am. So, this becomes the opportunity, but it's up to employees to say who wants it, who doesn't. You might have had an employee within the business, but to have the means to actually buy a business, to finance a business, to buy those $600-700 dresses and an inventory of,
There was an employee too that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen her take it over, but it just wasn't, it was a thought in her head, but it was not the time in her life that she could.
Right. And did she go to the new owner?
We're not sure what's happening with that. I don't know.
You don't know?
She didn't. I know she didn't go with Haley, but I don't know. At least in that business, she might have been going to the other one though.
Yeah. Well, you have to balance between what's best for us. You really take into account your employees, but you have to kind of not feel like a servant to.
Unfortunately, it's business though.
And I know that I have people who will always expect certain things of me, and usually I say I'm a recovering avoider of certain things. I'm working on it, but I just was raised as an avoider. You just do, you're expected to do, and you kind of have to deal with that.